So, yeah, 50 Venezuelans imprisoned in El Salvador came to the United States legally and never violated any immigration laws. So we don't need to get into all the details here. We've all heard that, like, of the 240 that were sent there, at least 75% of them had no criminal record whatsoever. Um, but when they were disappeared, their families were not informed. They were not informed. That's a blatant violation of habeas corpus, which we learned
Christy
recently.
Nome has no idea what that
understand
is.
what it is. Yeah, yeah. That's when the government explains why you're being detained, and they didn't do that for these people. So that's a blatant violation of that right.
Don't you know habeas corpus is the right for the president to remove anybody out of the country that he deems?
I would be willing to bet that most Americans' exposure to the words habeas corpus before Trump started violating it was when they announced that habeas corpus is being suspended at the beginning of one of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Because that's the scene that I think of every time I hear it, is right before they hang the child. The guy is like, the right to habeas corpus is suspended. But yeah, that's what habeas corpus is. And it's very important. So these guys, now this is the Cato Institute. Are you familiar with the Cato Institute?
I know the name.
Yeah, so I ran into that as well. I went through this whole thing, and I was getting the initially I went to the Hill and saw their story on this, and it's like, okay, well, you know, they have a link to the Cato Institute. I'm just going to click on that and get it straight from the source, because Cato's the one that did this investigation. And I recognize them, so I'm like, okay, well, I recognize them, so maybe they're a legitimate source or whatever. So I look into it. It turns out the Cato Institute is a right-wing libertarian think tank.
Oh.
So, and this is a very sympathetic piece towards these people. They, like, I'm not getting into the whole thing, but they have a whole list of, like, these people with no criminal record, like their full names, what information we have on them. It gives, like, it goes into, like, stories of what they're doing, like what their jobs were in the United States. I'm like, it's very unusual for me to see something calling for empathy among immigrants coming from a right-wing libertarian think tank. Like, if you're losing these guys, you're doing something wrong as a Republican. But yeah, so of the people that they could figure out how they crossed the border, 50 of them crossed legally. So some of them had temporary visas and they hadn't overstayed their visa. Like, remember, these are people that have not committed crimes. So they're in the States on a visa. Mm-hmm. There were people who made appointments through the app that they're supposed to use. Several of them had their court date, and they were told, like, okay, well, this isn't the final thing. So now you're released into the United States. You're allowed to live and work here for 2 years, and then we'll redo the court thing at that point. That's part of the U.S. refugee program. So it's like they were in the country legally. They didn't break any laws. They didn't enter illegally. But the government was just like, nope, you're gone. You have disappeared. You are now in an El Salvadorian torture prison. So, like, these were people that were vetted by the government. So the government vetted them and concluded that they would face persecution in their home country. So you're allowed to come here. Of the people that did come here legally, so 24 of them were paroled into the country after their CBP-1 appointment. 21 of them had an appointment scheduled. 4 of them were refugees, and 1 of them was on a tourist visa.
Okay.
So, like, they snatched a tourist and sent them to a torture prison.
Don't you love the United States of America?
Yeah. And then they mentioned, like, a lot of these people are, like, here we go. These men were workers, construction laborers, pipe installers, cooks, delivery drivers, a soccer coach, a makeup artist, a mechanic, a veterinarian, a musician, and an entrepreneur. Most of those who were released quickly found jobs in the United States. So, like, we're not talking about the people that, okay, well, I guess it's Schrodinger's immigrant. They're here to take all your jobs, but they're also lazy and sucking up all the welfare money.
Yeah, which way?
These are the
Western
ones
man?
that take all your jobs. But yeah. So yeah, United States is being fascist dictatorship almost. Like fascist, not almost. Dictatorship is the almost. There are still, in theory, some checks and balances.
Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really could not do any of this without all of you. Those of you watching, and especially those of you who support me on Patreon. I wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank all of you who do that, because with YouTube being what it is these days, I really cannot do this full time without the support from each and every one of you.
Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Tales of Atonement, Nixie Chan, Kiri Artemis, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that,
Leela Ururaka,
Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fire Shard.
Thank you so very much. But since you're here, why not go ahead and try watching another one? There should be one that's on the screen right now. And if you are a patron of mine, I wanted to go ahead and thank you again for all of your support. There is still a video you could press though, if you'd like. I would appreciate it just a little bit.